Hi everyone, welcome to the Elendi Files, where we navigate the complexities of the global regulatory landscape of medical products. Our goal is to help make global medical product regulations accessible to everyone. So whether you're a manufacturer, intermediary, regulatory specialist, or even CEO of a medtech startup, you're in the right place. And be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn and our website elendilabs.com. And I'm Teddy, the General Manager of Elendi Labs. At Elendi Labs, we're all about connecting clients, be it medical product manufacturers, medtech startups, biotech startups, with the right regulatory expertise to get products to people faster. Today, I'm so thrilled to be joined by Andrew from AKRA, a firm that has become sort of a go-to for navigating the complexities of the European market. We're going to be spending some time understanding EU, MDR, and IVDR, seeing how manufacturers can turn compliance from hurdle into a competitive advantage. And Andrew, thanks for being here. To kick things off, could you give us a brief introduction of what AKRA specializes in?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Teddy, for the introduction. Andrew Gibson here. I'm Senior Managing Consultant of AKRA Team. At AKRA Team, what we do is we are a consultancy, and we focus on the clinical, regulatory, and quality issues for manufacturers of medical devices and IVDs. So we're based out of Germany, but have offices in both Germany and New York, where we support 95% of the major global players of medical device manufacturers, all the way from global to mid-size and startups. So we're involved in all sorts of different medical devices, from hot topics like AI to class 3 implantable devices and drug eluting devices, for example. We have a team of about 20 based in Germany, and we're open to supporting all manufacturers who need support with both European compliance and US and other global markets.
Well, that's a wide variety of countries that you're targeting. Well, how about let's dive a bit deeper into the topic. Let's start with one with an easy one, what are the costs and timelines for registering a Class 1 medical device or a Class A in vitro diagnostic in the EU market?
So I think depending on what the manufacturer is trying to bring to market exactly, we know from Class 1 devices without special functions like that are sterile or measuring or reusable surgical instruments do not need notified body involvement other than to have a 1345 MDR compliant QMS. So for these manufacturers, it could be a relatively lower end cost to market, but there will be development costs and also getting your QMS up and running. But for these Class 1 manufacturers, the special needing notified body involvement, it could be anywhere between 25 to 50,000 euro. Could be a bit more or less, depending on what the manufacturer is trying to bring to market. But this contrasts something like a Class 3 implantable who needs to run studies where it's easily over €1 million to bring one of those devices to market. But there's ranges all between depending on the rest class.
Yeah. And what are the timelines like for registering Class 1? Yeah.
So these days, there's various notified bodies to select from. So it's important to select a notified body with that is predictable and transparent to you. But the notified bodies, if you are in a rush to get to market, they offer dedicated and expedited services. Some notified bodies, some have like a one-tiered system, others have like a three-tiered system where they have different services that they offer. So if you choose a large notified body with lots of capacity who can start looking at your file right away, you could have the most expensive service. Potentially you could get to market in 3-4 months, maybe up to 6 months for a higher risk device. But this is as fast as it goes. With the backlog before, we are seeing easily up to 18 months.
18 months.
To get to market. Yeah.
So it's
and that's after
take
development. So
after
that's
development.
18 months after submitting. So if you calculate in the development time, who knows how long that took to develop a product? Your 2-3 years could be. So it takes some time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite some time. So, no wonder why so many describe the transition to the EU MDR as like a regulatory marathon rather than like a sprint.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
do you recognize or does AKRA encounter any like big hurdle that manufacturers are currently hitting? What's like the biggest roadblock for most manufacturers?
So yeah, definitely. There's two aspects I'd like to talk about. There's from the consultancy perspective, and also from the industry. There's industry surveys out there from MedTech Europe, for example, that discuss the challenges and the hurdles from manufacturers. So they had issues with predictability and transparency, and also consistency of notified body reviews. So there was a lot of problems with capacity and the huge costs to getting to market that we can see, and not knowing exactly how long it takes to get to market. So this is one of the biggest hurdles, because the medical device manufacturers rely on funding, and if they cannot have with any certainty on cost or timelines communicate to their investors, how, when they're getting to market or how much it costs, it's very difficult to get to get people on board to go to the European market. From a consultancy perspective, we're much more on the technical side. So we see the gaps that we see in notified body, which are largely around sufficiency of clinical evidence, for example, or the clinical evaluation, for example, a lot of questions there. And also from the technical side, we see that as well, where legacy manufacturers, so manufacturers that were CE marked under MDD prior to MDR, their documentation was often, not fulfilling the requirements. So to get that documentation up to the level that's specified by MDR, it's taking a lot of effort to get the documentation up to speed.
I think not just the documentations, but where the notified bodies or the authorities require extra clinical data. So it's not just about having more documents, but rather like they have to conduct more and more clinical trials, and that might take extra time and money. And the startups or the companies, they're like really burning through their money. So they have to sort of explain to the investors that they're working on the regulatory problems and trying to get things done. Okay. That's really one of the biggest hurdles.
Yeah, and just to mention about that, this had knock-on effect actually. So the innovation to the European market was said to have gone down. US is maybe prioritized over Europe for innovators because the startups cannot afford to do these prospective clinical trials to gather data. But lately, we've been seeing loosening on this end. So there's proposal to change the MDR and the IVDR to allow for like a larger scope of clinical data to be accepted from like real world evidence and other data sources that were considered lower data sources before. In addition, they're making pathways for breakthrough devices and to re-promote innovation and transparency from notified body costs. So there's improvements that we should see over the next few years.
Is it helping, do you think?
Yes, but we're still only at a proposal, so it still needs to be accepted by the European Commission. There's a lot of pushback from notified bodies because it's really affecting their day-to-day work, and manufacturers are pushing it in the other direction. So we'll see exactly what comes through from the proposal.
Okay, wow, that seems a lot of work.
Yeah.
And just now we mentioned notified bodies. It seems like notified bodies are like a fortress that people have to overcome. So for clinical evaluation reports that we just mentioned, do you think there is like one red flag or any red flag that notified bodies keep flagging, and how does your team help a client identify the red flag before it's too late?
Yeah, so the clinical evaluation is one of the most sources of deficiencies during a review, and this is where AKRA team, we support most manufacturers with clinical evaluation. Most of our projects are in this area where we specialize. So for the most common red flags off the top of my head would be around the threshold, so safety and performance thresholds. So manufacturers may not even identify safety and performance outcomes that lead to threshold values for the acceptability of the benefit risk, or they have identified the wrong parameters to look at, or missed one or two. And even if you select the right parameters, maybe that you don't have enough data to develop acceptable thresholds, or your device maybe doesn't have enough data to show that you are acceptable against those thresholds, showing that you're state of the art. So around these, this is really one of the core arguments of the CER. So this is why you collect outcomes from the state of the art, why you compare it to your device, and how you at the end develop a positive benefit risk conclusion. And this is, there's other aspects around the CER, like showing, demonstrating sufficient evidence to support your claims, for example. But this is really showing the core safety and performance according to the intended purpose of the device and the clinical benefit. So that's one key area, and other ones are a bit more formal around the systematic literature review, that you have like a state of the art and the device literature review, and they're conducted in a way that's acceptable. You've used the right databases, the right search terms, and inclusion exclusion. You're showing a screening stage where you identify the articles. You have an appraisal that's done per plan that's acceptable, considering the IVDR guidance, and you're analyzing the data according to a plan. So those are some key points I'd like to highlight, but there's many more.
Yeah, wow, that sounds really like a hassle. But considering the amount of work and money that manufacturers have to put in before they can get the product registered, I'm wondering if AKRA has any like advice or suggestion for startups or smaller or resource limited teams build technical documentations that have the same level of rigor as a big company.
Yeah, there's a couple of tips I think I can have for limited resource companies. There's a lot of different technological solutions out there right now, like EQMS providers, that help structure documents in a compliant way. They're not 100%. None of the solutions will do it for you, exactly, to my knowledge. They all need, experts internally to help make sure that, if it's AI enabled, for example, that the output is correct, and to structure the QMS still in a good way. But, you have two sides of the compliance. You have your QMS, which is your processes and what everything runs under in your as a manufacturer. Then you have device-specific documentation, your technical documentation, which sits under that. So there's solutions for both, and the clinical evaluation would fall under the technical documentation, and has specific tools around that as well. Like, we partner with different service providers that either support with clinical evaluation tools. We would write it, but there's tools that help you write it. And then there's also technical documentation structuring tools that make sure that all the wording, say for your intended purpose, is consistent across the documentation. And this sounds very simple, but is actually difficult in practice. And if you have any changes, it's much easier than updating 15 documents by hand, that you have an electronic state-of-the-art solution that that is updating it and ensuring that there's no mismatches. Otherwise, I mean, from the cost perspective, I think it's important to engage or have internal resources or like engage consultants or whoever you need to get the appropriate expertise to make sure that you're not overdoing. So if you're in a situation where you're thinking you might need clinical data, that you're not, running a study that's collecting twice the endpoints that you need or having twice the sample size, or maybe you don't even need a clinical investigation and you can use other strategies. So make sure that you're scoping your project right from the start and engaging the right experts to make sure that you're taking the correct clinical path. And, even time to market is a big cost for these companies. So for SMEs or startups whose funding depends on getting to market in a certain date, if they get delayed by a year to market, it's huge.
Yeah. But I'm wondering if AKRA has package service for startups so that they can devise one-stop solution or a package for them, because I just see on your website that there are multiple partners that are of AKRA. So I'm wondering if AKRA could consider the case from a higher perspective and then give advice or strategies, regulatory strategies to startups so that they can choose one solution that fits their financial position most. Does AKRA offer such services?
Yes, we do. So we don't only work with the global multinationals who have a well-established system, but the startups. And we're working more and more with startups. So we have special packages for startups. And I'll tell you a bit about that. We have 20% discount for SMEs. So not only startups, but also small, medium enterprises, according to the definition for SMEs in Europe. So we have a 20% discount. And we also have monthly service packages where it's like a flat pay structure every month. So it has a monthly cost associated, but it doesn't spike the prices like a project-based consultancy where you might have a huge cost one month and not the next, and it creates a kind of inconsistent project cost. We have a flat payment structure where contracts can last a year or two, and it splits out the costs of services over a longer term, which is more easier to do financial planning for startups. The last thing we do is that we're quite adaptable as a consultancy. So some manufacturers say, okay, write our entire QMS or technical documentation. And that's probably the most expensive way of doing it. But there's another way of doing it where AKRA team can support at various levels. So maybe you have some resources internally that either need coaching or, that only need some assistance here and there. We can support that way too. So we can gauge our support depending on what the manufacturer needs. So if they need it yesterday, they need it as fast as possible. That we can support it in that way and get lots of resources on the project. Or if it's a year or two project where it's more at a steady, more and spread out pace, we can support 10, 15 hours a month to ensure that everything is done in a compliant way.
So I'm given to understand that the most important thing that AKRA has for startups is actually flexibility, right? It's the most important thing.
Yeah, we're not a huge consultancy, so we're very flexible to support manufacturers on whatever they need.
Well, I really appreciate what AKRA is trying to do here, especially for the startups. And Andrew, these are some incredibly practical insights, and thank you so much for sharing your boots on the ground perspective with us today. And for everyone listening or reading the transcript, we'll be featuring AKRA as a dentist specialist firm on the Elendi Labs platform. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the platform. And if you haven't checked out our website, please head to elendilabs.com and be sure to connect with us on LinkedIn.